Hey guys, Mark here. Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I want to take a moment to analyze the first few bars of the introduction to the song On Green Dolphin Street. So the idea comes from Jim. Thanks, Jim. Great work. We had a study session yesterday and Jim broke down that section, and it's a passage that if you guys encounter this at jam sessions, probably you'll see this chart, or worse, you'll see a chart that's even less legible than this. And the introduction has this daunting E flat pedal. Sometimes it's playing the key of C as well. For this video, we're going to do it in the key of E flat. So I have guitar in hand to show you how it works. I don't have a bass player friend. I call them, they're all busy. Of course, they're busy. So I will do something like this to play the chords on the screen. I will play good old fashioned E flat major 7 like this. And I will put a bass note with my right hand in it. And just to give you how it sounds, if you're not familiar with that song, it goes like this. That's not the actual rhythm of the bass riff, by the way. I'm not that good. So what we have an E flat, G flat, F, E. So it's a chromatic motion of 4 chords, and the key of the song is really E flat major. It is. So that's the root center. So one of the things that occurred to me while we were discussing about this yesterday is there's always a manner to go back to first principles and to analyze things in terms of 5-1s or 2 5-1s, right? So this is exactly what I want to do. In this video, I have my remarkable tablet on which I can write the chords and do some of analysis. And ultimately, this is what we're going to come out of, is seeing how this makes sense, how you can retain that and play the tune, and how this also makes sense in the way it's written in iReal, and just maybe learn the tune because it's beautiful. It's starting with that top E flat. And I love the George Benson versions, like Lovers, One Lovely Day. You see why I didn't make a career in voice and singing, right? Love came planning to stay, something like that. It's a very cool theme. There's a Joe Pass version also, is very good. So let's get going with the materials. All right, first things first. If we get rid of the gibberish, we're not even looking at the chart. We're not looking at iReal. We're just stab it here and go, okay, the key is E flat major. So that's our key center, that's our 1, all right? And the bars we're going to analyze go E flat major 7, G flat or F sharp major 7, F major 7. Also we'll encounter why in some charts like this you see it's not even an F major 7. We'll encounter this reason later. And then E major 7, whew! And then it says E flat pedal. So by pedal, it does mean that the bass player will be maintaining that E flat low like I did on my fretboard with my right hand, right? So it's basically we're pedaling. So people will write it on charts, will write it something like this, which makes a big mess. G flat major 7 over E flat. What does over with the slash mean? Well, it means the bass player is playing that guy. And then what does that mean? Well, it means the bass player is playing that guy. So if we just tell the bass player, hey, you just sit on an E flat, okay, we'll do our thing, then everything's going to be fine. So what I love to do is just go back to the first principle and see, well, that's 1. And if you were to do like a strict harmonic analysis with Roman numbers, you go like, well, if I have my key of E flat major, I go E flat, F, G, so the G would be 3. So this is a 3 of sorts, right? But it's a flat 3. Interesting. And then there's a 2. Not that weird, although typically we have a 2-5-1, the 2 is minor, right? And then we have that guy, which would be, we could write it as an F flat. I don't want to do that, so we'll call it flat 2. Okay, now that we got this out of the way, we have 4 chords that are in chromatic descent. Notice how this is, we have E flat, then we climb up to the G flat, and we go down a half step to F, down a half step. So and down a half step again to circle back when we want to do our loop here. So this is a half step down, this is a half step down, this is a half step down. So 3 times in a row we're going here, we climb up. So some of you guys call this side slipping, right? So that's our first hint in analyzing it and making sense out of this tune. The first thing I want to start looking at is if you guys played any if you looked into my coaching, which of course link in the description, you know I love to start by the end. Like if you gave me a chart like this, I'm meticulous. I'll go like, yeah, what's the last bar? Oh, well, actually, there's a second page of this chart, which I don't have now. So I'll go at the end of a section and start with the end to see where are we landing, what's happening there. So if we look at these 4 chords that we've already laid out on the chart, so E flat, G flat, F, and E, the last chord is giving us a really good indicator. So E major going to E flat major. I want to consider only this change because that's what's happening on repeats. What's E major? If you guys played any length of bossa nova, like Girl from Ipanema, you will have heard this a million times. Like, I'm gonna do it in E flat, even though the song's on E flat. So, then the two. So that's an E. That's an E going into an E flat. So we could call it flat 2, question mark. And the great thing about this kind of relationship is if I set up my E flat as my 1, that's my ultimate 1, and then I ask myself, what's the 5 of this? What's the 5 chord? And then what's the flat 2? We'll encounter a really interesting relationship. So 5 wants to get back to 1. Guys, everyone with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, B flat. Good. So B flat dominant 7 is our 5. What's our flat 2? Well, it's an E. It would be an E7. And when we do like bossa nova and stuff, often we'll have an E major. We'll have a flat 2 that is major, so it's a half-step descent into our 1 chord. So far, so good. So let me go back and rewrite these chords. We have E flat, we have G flat, we have F, and we have E again. So I think we sort of solved what that E is, which is a flat 2, which is a substitute for 5. How so? You ready for this? Here, that's what we call a TT. It is not only a tritone sub, because a pure tritone sub would be an E7, but also it's a tritone sub with a quality change, a color change. So what I did a tritone sub, link in the description below for the post about the tritone sub and stuff, and then I also change its color. So we're allowed to do this. We can take a dominant chord, make it major, make it minor. So the function is still working. So we know this is 1. We know this is 5 function. And now for the rest of this video, we're going to address what these two guys are doing. Hey guys, just a quick moment before we do the rest of the analysis. Please let me know what you think with your comment below. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to like and subscribe and just let me know what you'd like to see more of, because the stuff I create is really from you guys' comments, really. And this stuff is free, right? If you're interested in getting more coaching, of course, head over to the link in the description. I have a coaching program. I work with people. It's great. It's a great little program. This is the kind of stuff we do. But I've seen that on YouTube, I don't do a lot of harmonic analysis like this. And if you enjoy it, just let me know which parts or which songs you'd like me to tackle, and I'll do that in the next videos. Okay, where are we so far? So we've determined that this is the 1 chord, check. We've determined that this is sort of a 5 chord. We've also determined that we have an E flat pedal. This is a chromatic movement going down, going down, going down, and going down when we loop back. What are we left with? I think we're left with this chord, which we call the 2, and this chord, which we call something that we don't know yet. So let me just take you for a spin on my little tablet here. Okay, so one of the main progressions we find in jazz, of course you're familiar with this, we have the 2, the 5, and the 1. So the 2 and the 5 we've already talked about, and the 1 is already there. So if we were to doing this back to basics, back to the key of E flat major, not Green Dolphin Street, just the key of E flat major, we get an E flat major here. We talked about our B flat as the 5 chord and our F as the 2 chord, right? All correct? All good. Now, if we were to continue cycling, you will notice that between the 2 and the 5, there's a jump up a fourth, and between the 5 and the 1, which is the next one, which is this guy, there's also a movement up a fourth. So we can ask our question here. What would generate a movement up a fourth the same way? And the answer is 6. And that means it would be some kind of a C chord. So here we have the 1, 6, 2, 5 chord progression, which is foundational progression number 1. When people start my coaching program, I tell them, yeah, 2, 5, 1's fine. Let's also do 1, 6, 2, 5, and let's do 2, 5, 1, 6, which is tackled. It's part of the blues turnaround. It's like pretty much in every standard. So if I have my starting point here, I think I'm gonna set up Green Dolphin Street here and give you an idea of the equivalence. So the equivalence here is extremely simple. It's 1 to 1. It's still 1. It's not a problem. This guy we've talked about, and it's an E. So we went tritone sub with color change, with color. This one, we just have an F, so it's strictly a color change. And guess what this one would be? Yeah, you guessed it right. It's the same as the last chord. So if we did a tritone sub, we would wind up with a G flat or an F sharp. And if we did a color change, we would have a major. And there we solved this whole idea of how people play over Green Dolphin Street and why it's so familiar and so common, and yet at the same time it's so foreign. It's a bunch of major chords. What? There's a pedal. Yeah, you know. There's a bunch of things going on, and then the melody, the song, that's another story. But at the same time, we look at this, we go, well, there's 4 chords that seem unrelated, that are just chromatic, but at the same time, it's a pure reflection of 1-6-2-5, super common turnaround and phrase and cadence in jazz, with some color changes, making the song very familiar and aesthetically pleasing, although a bit surprising and unique, you see? So that's what makes really good hooks for jazz standards, right? So that's really one great way to look at this analysis. Now I'm going to take a little break, and we're going to go to another part of the analysis. Now when the song starts and we have the melody, some people will write it literally like E flat, the G flat major, to F. Some other people, and if you have the old real book, like the real book, not the Hal Leonard, but the handwritten, like Beer Stains one, you will often see this chord as coming as an E flat. What's that? So before we say we solved everything, I will just notate this as being another transition, call this RB, like the real book. So the real book has your E flat, that's solved, that's not a problem. But often you'll have E flat minor here. And I'll sort of shed some light in this. If we were to analyze the chord G flat major, we would wind up with a G flat, that's a tonic. The third is, it's a B flat, naturally. A D flat and an F natural. All right. So those are the 4 notes found in the G flat major chord. But if I look at all of this, I wind up actually with the notes from an E flat minor 9 without the root. So that would be 9, flat 7, 5, and flat 3 of that E flat minor. So G flat major 7 and E flat minor 7 are a third apart, and they look really similar. So when people say this, when people say E flat minor, actually it's synonymous with G flat major. I much prefer the G flat major nomenclature, the one that's in that official real book, like the print that's from the Shure. Check out Shure Publishing real book. That's the one that I prefer, because it makes sense when we look at it, right? But you will encounter this, so it's from major to minor. It does make sense. Sort of weird, but it does make sense. Now, that's one of the things people do. The E, this guy is typically, in all real books, it's always, not E flat. It's typically always just the E, and that's always happening. Now, what's happening here is often in the real book, you'll see something like this, an F7. And I'll tell you why we have an F7 instead. Because if I, again, write the notes of an F major 7, I go F, that's the tonic, the third, the fifth, and the major 7th of that F major 7, notice how we have an E note. And it takes that E note to build an F major 7. But I'm saying my bass guy, my bass player, if he's not asleep on the job, is going to do an E flat. He's going to play an E flat major, an E flat pedal. So with that E flat pedal, what winds up happening is F7 is spelled as 1, 3, 5, flat 7, and that's F, A, C, and E flat. So that's why people often will here set it up as an F instead. Again, I much prefer this nomenclature, me personally, because it makes sense, and I can extrapolate that, you get the flat 7 in the bass and not the major 7, so there may be a rub, whatever. It depends on the arrangements, depends on the player, and it's a fair way to notate it with an F7. All right, again, my name is Mark from Jazz Guitar Lessons. I hope you've enjoyed this analysis. Please let me know in the comments, again, if there's another song or anything unclear you'd like me to tackle. Please join us, of course, in the free fellowship group, Jazz Guitar Fellowship on School, because this has lessons, hangouts, master classes like this. There's a bunch of courses. They're all for free, guys. It's all free. It's all online, so all you need to do is click the link and join, and then you have access to this and much, much more. And just a quick recap on what we've done. We've essentially looked at Green Dolphin Street, on Green Dolphin Street, the famous Caper in Washington song, and we only looked at the introduction and that vamp, and I hope it could demystify a bunch of the things that people may think are coming out of like mysticism, or it's like, where is that spiritual enlightening? Of course, like, no, it's just a chromatic descent. Yeah, it's just a 1-6-2-5, but it's been doing it all along in a bit of a disguise. So often that's what's happening with the chords, is it's still just a 2-5-1, but it's done in such a way that it's not immediately obvious. So for instance, I'll encourage you, if you haven't done these sorts of analyses, go and check out Stella by Starlight. It's a famous standard. People say it's pretty hard, but when we look at the analysis, these chords all make sense together in the context of the key. All right, so again, my name is Marc from Jazz Guitar Lessons. I'll see you soon on this channel and on the free fellowship group. Take care. Talk to you soon.